Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel. We want to be your go-to spot for all things Big Ten football and men's basketball, where we break down the news, the games, and yes, sometimes the shade that gets thrown the Big Ten's way. I'm JR, and today we're diving into some fresh drama from the courtesy of the SEC savior coach himself, one Nick Saban. So on the Pat McAfee show on Friday, Saban decided to take a swing at the Big Ten, basically saying we're not as deep as the SEC and questioning a bunch of the teams that in the conference you would consider their depth teams. I can't play the whole clip for you because ESPN doesn't like it when I show their network TV stuff, so I'll just read you what Nick Saban had to say. Here's what he said. I don't think the Big Ten is really that deep. He goes on, it's not like the SEC where you've got 8 or 9 teams that can beat you. Okay. Sorry. He goes on. I mean, Penn State. I mean, tell me that good teams. Sorry. I mean, Penn State. I mean, tell me the good teams. Maybe Michigan. Well, we'll see tomorrow. Talking about USC. He goes on. I mean, you think USC is going to beat Ohio State? You think that that would be a game if they played? Really? I mean, Illinois got beat like a redheaded stepchild, down in Indiana. So are they legit? I mean, come on. Ohio State is great. Well, I got news for you. If Ohio State played against some of these teams in the SEC that you think are so good, Nick Saban, then they would get beat up pretty bad too. And Indiana could possibly do the same thing to them if their entire secondary gets hurt. So anyway, if you can't tell, we're not buying it from Saban. In fact, this whole thing just feels like Saban's audition to be the next Paul Feinbaum, if you're asking me, right? Just in case Paul Feinbaum decides to run for office, which, let's be real, might seem more likely ever since ESPN cut off that caller who tried to bring it up on his show. But overall, I mean, this is pretty cringe. So much misinformation, so many terrible ideas, and the things that are coming out of this from the fans as well are not great. So a former SEC coach on a network that owns the SEC media rights hyping up the SEC. This is just groundbreaking stuff, folks. I mean, shocking, really. But here's where we push back. Okay, here's some real pushbacks, right? Because Saban's take just doesn't hold water when you look at all the facts, when you look at the on-field play. First off, SEC fans love to tout the depth for a huge reason nobody really talks about. Their team struggles so much on the road. They're sitting at just 5-16 in away games this season, with 2 of those wins needing to come in overtime. It doesn't get talked about as much as the Big Ten because they don't have the massive travel issue, which is real, even though I do hate hearing coaches bring it up because it sounds like an excuse. It is totally a real thing and something that fans, when they're predicting games, need to consider. In their minds, that means everyone's tough, but really, it just highlights the inconsistencies. For 2 decades, the SEC claimed they were the best because their top teams were winning titles, title contender after title contender. Now they want to say 8 or 9 teams are SEC contender. How is that any different, right? Honestly, they weren't wrong back in the day, right? I would try to refute it, but my best argument was just that they were paying players and the conferences were more even than we thought. Well, now the Big Ten has snagged the last 2 national titles, and suddenly to them, it's all about depth. Who cares about the national championships? It's all about depth. It's literally nothing more than a spin to stay relevant, while the real title contenders for this year are stacking up in the Big Ten. Even the ACC has like Miami, right? And the SEC, they might have 1 or 2 down the line. Alabama might be that team. But right now, they've failed to separate themselves yet. And at the end of the day, there's one champ, and that's what counts. Not how many teams can kind of hang around. Maybe they get into the playoffs. But let's talk real about Saban himself. The guy bolted from college football the second NIL and the transfer portal started leveling the playing field because he knew Big Ten teams and their alumni had deeper pockets. He also knew he wasn't able to control a roster that had guys on there that wanted to get paid, and he also knew that he wasn't the only one paying players anymore. He couldn't pay the recruits through his car dealership and McDonald's bags anymore. Way back when he coached in the Big Ten, his record was a mediocre 34-24-1. won. He didn't win a single bowl game when he was in the Big Ten. He didn't start dominating until he jumped to the SEC, where it was an arguably easier league at the time, where he could pay the recruits because the conference and their coaches never did anything about it. So they could do it. So they could all do it now. With and if you don't believe me, go listen to Biff Poggi's interview with College Game Day, where he says, "Oh yeah, I learned about paying players from you, Nick Saban." He's not joking. It's true. That's what he learned. Now, with everyone able to utilize NIL in the transfer portal, the excuses are flying every single year. The SEC claims regular season dominance by playing the bottom of every conference out there, right? With their best teams, Tennessee versus NC State, right? They hardly ever come up north to play. They're ghosts, okay? Neutral site games are still in the Texas and Georgia. They haven't beaten a Big Ten team in the last 2 playoffs, and deep squads like Alabama and South Carolina got handled by Michigan and Illinois when they had more players opting in than those teams did. Heck, USC was a bottom half of the Big Ten team last year and still went 2-0 against SEC teams. Alabama even dropped 1 to Florida State earlier this year, who lost to Virginia. And don't get me started about this whole Wisconsin win they try to hype up. Maryland blew that same Wisconsin team out when they were on the road, right? Alabama did it at home. Whoop-de-doo. Congratulations. Freshman quarterback Bleak Washington went and did it on the road. The SEC hypocrisy is everywhere. If UCLA and Penn State were in the SEC, that close game would be hailed as proof of parity and depth and how amazing everything is, right? But since they're in the Big Ten, suddenly, Penn State sucks. That's all they are. And not how talented UCLA is despite the losses. Now, not that this UCLA team is finding its stride. They don't want to talk about how UCLA beating Penn State. They just want to talk about how awful it is for Penn State, how soft of a schedule teams have. Meanwhile, Florida beats Texas, and there's more talk about how Florida can be a playoff contender if they win 8 or 9 games, right? Now, I'm not saying UCLA should be ranked and should be talked about as a playoff contender or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But at least some acknowledgement that this team is, in fact, dangerous and one that every team should take seriously moving forward, regardless of their record. You get that in the SEC because they started with over half their teams ranked in the preseason AP Top 25, which inflates those ranked wins SEC fans love to bring up and talk about. But we all know the AP poll is a joke, right? No accountability for voters, barely watching games, rushing polls in too early. They got to get them in by like 8 a.m. Sunday morning. It's documented chaos. Take Ole Miss, somehow ranked number 4 ahead of undefeated Indiana. They barely scraped by at home against Arkansas. Oh, Arkansas, what a great game. Trinidad Chambers, he's a Heisman contender now. Amazing. But then Arkansas goes and gets smoked. They get smacked by Memphis and Notre Dame. Notre Dame crushed them 56-13, and they beat a team, and they almost beat a team in Ole Miss that was ranked above, right? I mean, Ole Miss feasted on a non-conference schedule and an overrated LSU. I mean, is that the depth they're talking about, right? Or is it just smoke and mirrors? I'm going to go with the latter, the smoke and mirrors. But what's crazy is that even with all these facts, all this evidence, the SEC fans still want to come out and talk crap. So I responded to many of them on Twitter. Go check out my Twitter profile at JRs_rankings. All right. First, they wanted us to look at the spreads. Yeah, okay. They want to say Ohio State, a top Big Ten team, is favored by 14.5 over an upper middle Illinois team, while Texas A&M, a top SEC team, is only 7.5 over a bottom tier Florida. The SEC's better, they say. That logic is backwards. Ohio State's a bigger favorite because they're flat out superior. They've met expectations. They'd be a touchdown favorite over A&M as well. Florida's underachieving. They're losing to USF, but their odds don't swing wildly like public opinion does, right? Vegas doesn't do that. It shows the SEC stockpiles talent, but coaches don't develop it, leading to inconsistencies. That's not the strength they think it is. It's a flaw. Underachieving does not prove prove strength, right? Next, they're big mad that the Big Ten fans are coming after Nick Saban because he ran the sport for years. Right. Okay. But they fail to mention that he fled the Big Ten for an easier path where he could pay where he could pay the players because that's what they allowed down there, right? In the Big Ten, he was average at best, needing to develop players rather than outspending. He went 34-24-1 at Michigan State. Never won a bowl game, almost like he finally went where he could finally pay and get the most talent and start winning. We even have fans of Big Ten teams saying they agree with all this, that the middle of the Big Ten is just pathetic. It's just a complete lack of understanding. It's a complete lack of comprehension. They're falling for the hypotheticals that the SEC fans fall for. USC, which was a bottom half of the Big Ten team last year, again, they went 2-0 against better SEC teams because they were in the top half of the league and USC was in the bottom half, right? Now, yes, it didn't happen this year. Michigan went on the road and lost to Oklahoma. We can fully acknowledge that, and that's something you definitely need to talk about. But that was also the very first start for a true freshman on the road in Bryce Underwood. Yeah, how'd it go for DJ Lagway when he was on the road last year? 3 games. He averaged 93 yards per game passing the ball, and on those 3 games, he threw the ball, and in those 3 games, he either started or threw the ball 15 times or more. He had 2 interceptions and a completion percentage of just barely over 50%. Plus, virtually no rushing stats, and he was sacked 5 times. So maybe it's a little hypocritical to be critical of Bryce Underwood's first road start when the widely proclaimed best QB in college football, DJ Lagway, didn't do all that much better himself. But the funniest one is the SEC fans saying that the Big Ten, it's just a top-heavy conference with Ohio State and Oregon. They're juggernauts. Nobody can beat them, right? And meanwhile, the SEC has more competitive teams. Right? Oh, who's another conference that has competitive teams? The Big 12, right? That's the most competitive conference in all of college football. At the very least, the most competitive Power 4 conference in all of college football, and no one crowns them the best for that, right? Competitive means you don't have any dominators. You don't have any national title contenders because NIL evened things out and coaching is subpar. Now, by the end of it, the SEC probably will have at least 1 or 2, but the SEC has had 3 teams win the conference since 2013. Spare me the parody talk. They're a glorified Big 12 at this point. And finally, the Big Ten is down this year. They want to talk about, the Big Ten's down this year. The middle's not very good. Really? We've got three of the top 3 teams in the nation per ESPN's SP Plus, and 3 of the top 4 in ESPN FPI metrics. The SEC fans love to mention when it suits them, but you can't cherry pick here. Look, Saban, he is one of the greatest coaches to ever coach, no doubt. Okay, we can't take that away from him. But this take smells like sour grapes for an SEC homer. The Big Ten's built for the long haul, depth, development, coaching, and yes, championships now as well. So what do you think, right? This is what I think. Overall, here's my thoughts, all right? Dan Lanning said it best. Chris Lowe tweeted this out just during the Washington-Rutgers game. This is what Dan Lanning said, and I completely agree with Dan Lanning here. Props to him. He said, quote, "They're 2 unbelievable leagues," talking about the Big Ten and the SEC, "both going to have the most players drafted, but I think the bowl record of the Big Ten was pretty good last year against the SEC, 5-1. And I think the national champion the last 2 years came from that league. It's just not the same as it was 10 years ago. It's different." And Dan Lanning is absolutely right. It's different now. Do we need to come out here and say the Big Ten is undoubtedly better? We're going to say that. Does it need to be that? No, not necessarily. At the end of the day, these are the 2 best conferences in college football. Will the SEC be better some years? Yeah. Will the Big Ten be better some years? Yeah. We need to treat the 2 leagues the same because the 2 leagues have the most money right now. The 2 leagues are the most dominant in college football right now, and the 2 leagues are the ones that have teams that that can go out and beat just about anybody on any given Saturday. It's true. that the SEC does have a lot of depth in the conference, but the Big Ten has a whole lot of depth too. And at the end of the day, it was the talking point for SEC teams and SEC fans to say we had more championships. Well, notice how much they swerved from we had more championships to now we have more depth. At the end of the day, all they're doing is just trying to win the argument with whatever they see fit most. If they're happy with not winning championships, fine. Go do it. have your glorified Big 12. But here at the Big 10, we try to win championships. And we're going to put teams on the field that can do that. Thanks for watching the Big Ten Huddle. I appreciate it. Once again, I'm JR. Drop your comments in the section below. Would love to hear what you have to say. Like, subscribe. You can hype the video now as well. That would be very much appreciated if you would do that. But really, the best way to support the Big Ten Huddle is just watch the videos all the way through. All right? Watch the videos, all of them we put out there. Watch them all the way through. It really helps us out. Even if you forget to hit that like button, it's all good. It happens, but I'll do my best to remind you as often as I can. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.